If you've got an asylum case pending in immigration court, then this video is for you. I'm gonna walk you step by step through what to expect on the day of your main asylum hearing, the one where you present your case and, normally, learn your fate. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you got an asylum case pending or are considering applying. And listen, I'd especially like to hear from you if you've been waiting for an asylum interview with USCIS for multiple years. Okay, let's be clear. Our focus today is on the merits hearing or the individual hearing. This is the crucial phase where you substantively argue your case in immigration court. And this is different from the initial or master calendar hearing, which serves as your first appearance in immigration court and is primarily administrative in nature. So this merits hearing, also referred to as an individual hearing, is where it truly matters. You get the opportunity to present your case in detail, and the judge determines the outcome of your asylum application. Okay, so what happens on the day of your asylum hearing? Well, let's start with getting to the court building. You need to arrive at the building at least 40 minutes before your hearing start time in order to ensure that you actually get into the courtroom on time, at least 10 minutes before your hearing start time. Be sure to check out ahead of time where the building is located and to either figure out where you're going to park or to arrange transportation to ensure that you get there on time. So once you're in the building, well, you'll need to go to the proper floor, right? And once you're on the floor where the immigration court is in fact located, well, you'll pass through security. You'll go through a metal detector, and then you'll need to find the actual courtroom where your hearing is going to take place. If you don't find it right away, don't hesitate to ask the court personnel. So there should be a person behind a window who can assist if you just show them your hearing notice. Okay, so you'll go to your courtroom, right? Well, if you open the door and there are already people in there, like another hearing is going on, well, then quickly and quietly just kind of step out and wait. And once the people come out, then you can go in. So upon entering the courtroom, you'll be asked to take a seat at a table that is facing the judge. Now, off to one side, there's going to be another table where the lawyer for the government, the prosecutor, sits. Now, that person is trying to get you deported. If you have a lawyer, then they'll be seated at the table with you. There shouldn't be anyone from the public in the courtroom. It'll just be you, your lawyer, the government's lawyer, the judge, and perhaps two more people, maybe an interpreter, and possibly someone from the judge's staff. When the immigration judge enters the room, you should stand up to show respect, and the judge will introduce themselves, explain the purpose of the hearing, and ensure that you understand the proceedings and your rights in them. Now, before delving into your case, the judge will confirm your identity and ask about your current address. The judge will then review your asylum application with you, asking if any updates or corrections are needed. Now, sometimes they're really thorough in reviewing the application, and it can take a while to get through it, but most judges just kind of plow through it or basically glaze over it. So once you're done making any changes, you'll be asked to sign the application form, affirming its truthfulness. You'll also take an oath, promising to tell the truth in your testimony. By the way, if you don't speak English fluently, or if you're pretty fluent, but you just feel more comfortable in your native language, well, you can do all this in your native language using interpretation. The court should provide interpretation at no cost to you. Okay, next is your direct testimony, where you explain why you left your home country and cannot return. Now, the judge might have you stay seated at your table for this part of the hearing, or they might ask you to move over to the witness stand, which is basically just a chair that's kind of off to the side of where the judge sits. This is your chance to directly share your experiences, fears, and reasons for seeking asylum with the judge. However, you won't be able to narrate your story freely. It will be a question and answer session. Now, if you have a lawyer, they'll be the one asking you questions, and they're designed to help you present your case in a compelling way, one that shows how you meet all the asylum requirements. And if you don't have a lawyer, well, the judge will guide your testimony by asking you questions. So what kind of questions are you going to be asked? Well, to answer that, let's pause here and get a better understanding of what it takes to win asylum, as well as what questions to expect from the judge. Many asylum seekers are unaware of the intricate requirements needed to secure asylum. And in It's crucial for asylum seekers to understand precisely what information the judge needs to know about their case, and it's crucial to present it in a clear and concise manner. So the three primary components of any asylum case are past persecution, future persecution, and nexus, which refers to the link between the persecution and one of the 5 protected grounds under U.S. asylum law. Now, when it comes to past persecution, the central question is whether the harm already endured is severe enough to be considered persecution as defined by U.S. asylum law. For future persecution, the asylum applicant must persuade the judge that the evidence indeed demonstrates a genuine risk of serious harm in the future. Lastly, you've got to establish that the persecutors are motivated to harm you, specifically because you possess, or at least they think that you possess, one of the 5 protected characteristics enumerated in the law. These 5 protected grounds are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, and something called membership in a particular social group. So this is what most of the questions are going to be about. Whether you've been harmed in the past, and if so, whether that harm was sufficiently severe to count as persecution, whether you're likely to be persecuted in the future, and what the reason is for the persecution. But of course, I mean, that's not all, right? There are other issues that will come up in your asylum case, like whether you could be safe if you just went back to another part of your country, like if you relocated internally within your country, and whether you may be subject to any of the bars to asylum. In short, there's a lot that the judge needs to know, so be ready for anything and everything in the questioning. I'm going to leave a link in the video description to a full-length training that I created all about the questions that you'll be asked in your asylum case. All right, after your direct testimony, the government attorney will cross-examine you, asking detailed questions to test your credibility and consistency. Some prosecutors may be hostile or intimidating in their questioning. To be clear, this person, the prosecutor, is trying to show the judge that you should not get asylum and should instead be deported. They're going to try to pick your story apart. They want you to look bad in front of the judge. They want to make you look like a liar and a fraud. And some of them are trying to rattle you. They're purposely trying to upset you so that you'll do a poor job testifying and make mistakes. It can be tough for sure. So this part of the hearing, your direct testimony and your testimony on cross-examination, will likely take at least an hour, and it often takes several hours. It can be exhausting and really difficult. If you get too tired, or maybe you become emotional or just feel overwhelmed, well, you can ask for a break. The judge will almost certainly say yes. You can take a minute to compose yourself. Maybe, get a drink and go to the restroom and get prepared to finish your testimony. Now, note that during your testimony, the judge or the prosecutor might ask you about any evidence that you have provided. So you've got to be ready to answer questions about it. Also, be ready for the judge to interrupt at any moment. They may cut you off or may jump in and cut your lawyer or the prosecutor off, and they may ask questions that really have nothing to do with what's being discussed at the moment. And well, you've just got to roll with it, okay? You need to answer their question and then get ready for the next one. Once you're done testifying, any witnesses that you've brought can also testify, and then they can be cross-examined. Now, most asylum applicants don't have any witnesses, but they can, under certain circumstances, make a meaningful contribution to an asylum case. Okay, so after all the testimony, you or your attorney can make a closing argument, summarizing why you meet the criteria for asylum, or maybe addressing any of the specific issues on which you think the case may turn. And of course, the prosecutor will also have a chance to present a closing argument. Finally, the judge will either announce their decision or inform you that they need some time to consider it and will issue a written decision later and send it to you in the mail. In most cases, the judge tells you the decision right then and there. Now, some judges will explain their reasoning in detail, while others, well, they give you virtually nothing in the way of insight into their thought process. If the judge announces the decision at the end of the hearing, they'll ask both you and the prosecutor whether you want to reserve your right to appeal the decision. Now, if you don't get the decision that you wanted, well, then I encourage you to say that, yes, you reserve the right to appeal. You'll then have 30 days to file an appeal with the Board of Immigration Appeals. If the judge grants you asylum, that decision is not final unless the prosecutor waives appeal at the trial. Sometimes they do this, but not always. If they don't waive the right to appeal, then you've got to just wait. They have 30 days to file an appeal. And if they do file an appeal, well, you'll get a letter notifying you about it, and you'll need to keep fighting your case. But if you get to day 31 and the government has not appealed, well, then your grant of asylum becomes final. So that's the process for your individual hearing in immigration court in your asylum case. But how long does all of this take? Well, all told, you can expect your asylum hearing to last at least a couple of hours and more likely several hours. Sometimes you don't even finish the hearing in a single day. The judge has to schedule a follow-up hearing. So you should definitely clear your calendar for the entire day on the date of your individual hearing in immigration court. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then please call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us today and schedule an asylum strategy session so that one of our asylum professionals can analyze your situation and tell you whether we think we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.